Well, there it is, so let's get working. Hey everyone, welcome back to Garage Story. So while that penetrating oil is soaking, I wanted to tell you a little bit about this mower. I picked this mower up a while back. I don't honestly remember when I picked it up, but mostly it sat around out back for a long time, and then I moved it right next to the shop door, I think last year sometime. And the reason I moved it there is because I was thinking about swapping its engine into a zero-turn that was having a lot of issues. I'd already done an engine swap, but I couldn't get things quite right. This was the old John Deere Z425, which some of you longtime viewers will remember, but I never got around to making that engine swap, so the mower just sat there until recently when I pulled it out to do a different engine swap. Let's see if this works. Sometimes this is an absolute pain. Not that part, but what comes next. Oh yeah! Let's go check the other one. So when you're pulling an engine for an engine swap, there's a couple of different paths you could go. One would be to just pull the engine out and then try to get it running in the new situation, which has its own challenges because you don't know for sure if the engine runs. But that leads us to the second option, which is to get the mower running in the machine that it's being pulled out of. Now you can have difficulties with that sometimes because there could be issues with the electrical system or safety switches or fuel system on the existing machine, which could be why the machine was parked in the first place. You never know. But it saves you from pulling an engine out and then finding out that it's bad a little further down the process. I didn't choose either of those options exactly. I chose a third option, which was to get the engine running and to get the whole mower driving as well. And there's a reason for that. This looks like it should be an easy one. Let's leave that on because there's a support that goes through there. Let's take off that one. I think I know what size it is. It looks like we are also going to need to remove this right there. That was easy. I almost forgot I should do this now. There's one more thing on this side of the mower to remove. And that's because this is the drive side. If you count removing the wheels, we're over halfway there. So when I went the route I chose, it did come with issues. And that brings us to this funky bracket right up here. What happened was, I was able to get the engine to fire up, which would have been enough for me to go ahead and pull the engine out for my engine swap. But because I wanted the mower to run and drive, I also needed to have a functional fuel system. And that presented some issues. I put gas in the tank, and I could not get it to come out through the fuel line to the carburetor. Okay, we're not getting any fuel out the fuel pump yet. So I used this auxiliary fuel tank to solve my issues. At least most of them. That runs great. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jack up the back of this and see if those wheels are frozen on there. Those are pretty bad. Front ones, I think they may air up. Back ones are not going to air up like that. If they are frozen on there, I'm just going to leave them. If they're not frozen on, I'm going to throw some other wheels on there and see if we can test drive this thing. All right, those wheels are loose. They're not holding there. I found a couple other tires I think will work. It's yellow, but I don't think that matters for this. So we got tires on here all the way around that are holding air. At least I think that one is. So now we should be able to actually test fire this thing up and see if it actually runs and works. fun testing the transmission out. Now, I know some people might think I'm damaging the transmission by the way I was testing it, going full forward to full backwards, but I don't really think so because the tires lose traction so easily, you're not really going to tear up the transmission that badly. I want to see if it's going to do those tests without any hesitation or making noises and stuff like that. Yes, it is a little harder than everyday wear and tear, but I kind of wanted to make sure it was running well, so I don't think it's a real issue. Alright, that transmission works pretty good. The deck doesn't work, the steering is funky, so engine and transmission are good, and the deck we can probably pull off and kind of see if it's frozen up or not, and we can probably sell the deck fine. We couldn't really test the deck out because it wouldn't engage at all. So this mower actually could be a decent mower, and in its day it probably was a pretty decent mower. It's got a 3-blade deck on there for a 46-inch cut, which is pretty uncommon. Normally it's a 48-inch cut that switches over to 3 blades. Now, take this thing apart. I got plans for the engine. I want to swap this engine into another project, and the transmission hopefully we can sell, and the deck hopefully we can sell. So when I jacked up the mower to pull the engine out, I did notice something that was a little bit odd. So on my mower jack, it picks up the mower by the 2 front wheels, and for some reason it didn't seem like everything was aligning right. I was actually concerned that I didn't have the mower on the jack right, but I checked and it seemed securely on there, so I proceeded forward. You can see that wheel is like a little further back. The axle appears to be bent. It comes straight across there and then it kind of bends backwards and it's rolled over a little bit. Interesting, which throws this tie rod up far there, and interestingly the mower turns sharper that way. This wheel can go so far that way that it'll like dig in, and the mower just kind of spins the rear wheels almost. It's like plowing and not turning. I also noticed that the drag link for the deck on this side has been refabricated. That's not the OEM one. The OEM one should be like this right here. Somebody made a new drag link bracket or piece there on this one. So sounds to me like this mower was in an accident, ran into something pretty good, and it broke that drag link, bent to that mount a little bit, pushed back the front axle there, and possibly also caught the wheel and skipped it over on the steering rack. Maybe the steering rack caused some of these issues because maybe the steering rack got off-centered somehow and then turned sharp and the wheel plows, and that actually bent the axle with the wheel plowing there like I did earlier. So finding that bent front axle and frame, whatever all was bent up in there, it was kind of interesting just thinking about what could have possibly happened there. Did the mower run into a tree at high speed, or did something else run into the mower? I don't know, did it catch a stump? But it's kind of actually good news because that's probably, well, it's at least possibly why they scrapped the mower, which means that the other systems may have been fully functional, which would be like the engine and the transmission. And that's great because that's what I was doing here today, was pulling the transmission out. This could be exciting. Things might fall apart. Sure enough. Well, literally dropping the transmission out of there may not have been quite ideal, but I don't think the transmission's hurt. However, the shop floor might be a different story here. Got a nice gouge there. I'm not sure what that says about my concrete. Actually, I've kind of known that my concrete's a little bit dry and brittle. I don't think they did a good job when they poured it. Or should I say, in how they mixed it. So something you have to think about when you're pulling transmissions that isn't really an issue here is your drive belt. In this case, since the engine's gone, not really an issue. I just need to peel it out of here, but sometimes that can be a pain. The transmission is out. Let's put all the hardware back on. Wouldn't it be bad if in all my videos my head was cut off on top? That'd be really bad. I'm really glad I went the extra mile to make the mower more functional so I could test the transmission, because that means now I have a transmission I can sell to someone else and feel pretty good about knowing that it was tested. And yes, I would probably wash this thing off before I sold it. But that means that this mower is pretty much ready to be scrapped. We've got the engine, deck, and transmission off of here. On some mowers, the fuel tank is worth a lot. On some mowers, the hood is worth a lot. There's no hood on here. That's obviously gone. I'll double check the gas tank just to make sure that it's not worth a lot. I don't think those are worth a lot. They may be worth like $30 or something like that, which isn't a lot to me. I would prefer to sell parts and such for at least $75 a part. So that means we're ready to wheel this thing out of the shop. Alright, so we got that project wrapped up. We got the engine pulled and put in another zero turn. We got the transmission tested and removed, so we can sell that now. The deck is off as well. I think we can probably sell it, although it's a little less common than some. Thank you so much for tagging along and watching this video. Feel free to comment below if you liked the style and format of this video, or if you didn't like it, that's totally fine. And as always, don't be afraid to get out there and go break a wrench and try something and work on a project. Do something you haven't done before. But more importantly than that, stay safe when you're doing it. Be careful. I think that wraps it up for this video. I'm about out of time, so we will catch you on the next one. Oh yeah, and you might want to check out some of my other videos, but totally up to you. Shop is pretty empty again. What should we bring in? Oh, that.